Greetings, everyone. So lovely to be here this Sunday evening. I hope you are doing fantastic. And so, my mother, who's a big fan of astrology, she told me that this next 2 weeks are going to be the most difficult weeks of the year, and that Wednesday is supposed to be the worst day of the year. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sometimes astrology seems to be right on, and sometimes it just doesn't interact with our field. But I can tell you this: Mercury is in retrograde. I found myself the other day at Starbucks. I don't support Starbucks; it's not the kind of company I like to be a part of. But anyways, I was with my younger brother, and he likes to drink coffee, and so we were in there, and the people at Starbucks, there was 10 people in line, and they managed to mess up 10 orders in a row. I said, my God, I don't know what is going on in here, but the story was too ridiculous for me to even recount. It was beyond silly, beyond silly. And so sometimes there are these forces from outer space that can affect us. And it can be something else. It can be something else. Sometimes there's forces here on planet Earth, like cold, sicknesses, and viruses. I've been on the verge of losing my voice for about a week now, and I just barely holding on to having some semblance of a voice. So we do our best here in this spiritual world. We do our best to show up and to continue to take the next step that's in front of us. And so let me think. I have an announcement. We have a retreat coming up, the 7 Chakras retreat. And we're going to take a deep dive into the chakras and investigate how each chakra center is a doorway to a grand, boundless, non-dual expression of divinity. And of course, these 7 chakra centers are aspects of your being. And so if you can make it, please come. It is August 23rd through the 25th, 2024, if you're listening at a later date. And please sign up early, precisely because we're in Mercury in retrograde. I don't want to get 10 emails on the 3 minutes before the retreat that you don't have the link. Okay. I think that's everything I need to say. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's everything. I did mention that in the beginning of September, I'm going to have to go into the back country and do some serious business there. And so I'll be missing a couple classes here and there the first 2 weeks of September. So just keep that in mind. If you want to slack, those 2 weeks would be a good time to slack. But for the month of August, let us be here fully. Okay. So I think that's all the announcements and everything, the welcoming. We did that. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I'm going to invite you to come into your heart and to feel, to experience directly this space of the heart. And if your heart is open and undefended, right away you should be feeling a sense of love, openness, boundless sense of radiance and freedom. And if you find that that's hard for you to experience, there might be something here on the surface that needs to be forgiven or released or let go of. And it can be helpful to come into your 3rd chakra center, place of power, and to choose to let go, to say, I'm willing to let go now. I'm choosing to open now. I'm choosing to soften now, right here in this moment. And if you scan your body, sometimes the heart has a hard time opening. If all your energy or all your conscious awareness is up in your head, if you're thinking about tomorrow, this or that, that's not the place to be. Sometimes we're behind the heart, ruminating about the past or in our shoulders, trying to carry some stressful weight. I want to invite you to surrender it all. And to breathe, to feel, to soften. To open into this beauty of your heart, this goodness of your heart, purity of your heart. Just taking some deep, full breaths. Softening throughout the body, inviting the heart chakra to expand. To fill up the chest, fill up the torso. We invite love. Love to awaken, love to triumph over anything false within us. So yes, breathing, feeling, softening. Each of you here, as I look at you, divine beings, I hope you can see the love that I see in each of you, your true nature. This radiant love. What a gift it is to be this love, to be what you are. The greatest gift you can give yourself. For you to be this loving presence. Opening, opening, opening. Forever opening. Forever choosing to be this love. So this day, this moment, I'm going to invite us to grow up on the spiritual path. By growing up, I mean to choose love, not to allow yourself to be a slave to the unconscious forces within, the forces of the body, the forces of animal nature, forces of emotion, the forces of mind. inviting this love that you are to make the conscious choice to be free. In order to be free, we must take responsibility for our life and our path. And so as we continue to open and become established in this deep radiance of the heart, I'm going to invite you some inquiry questions for you to consider in this space of meditation. These questions are here to support you in taking responsibility for your life, for your path. And so from this space of love and mindfulness, I ask you, how have you been complacent on the path? How have you been complacent? Sometimes we sit back and we let life carry us along in directions that are unhelpful or just unconscious. How have you been complacent on the path? How have you allowed your ego, which is simply a force of habit? Ego loves complacency, just is on autopilot and just floats. How have you been complacent on the path? Can you allow yourself to see all the ways that you have been complacent? The ways you have drifted in realms of laziness or sleepiness or unconsciousness. How have you drifted on this path? And what are some ways, some areas in which you could take ownership of this complacency or this drifting? And so you just let whatever answers come, whatever truth needs to come and be seen in this space of meditative inquiry. And so I'll ask one more time, how have you been complacent, drifting, floating in the past? Sometimes as spiritual beings, we just kind of hang out and float and drift. Don't really do anything. We don't make any choices to change our life or to choose to be awake. Sometimes we just float. And so I say thank you. The next question I'll ask you is a fun question. How have you been flailing on the path? I hope some of you can smile. I can smile at the ways that I've flailed on the path. So I'll ask you, how have you been flailing on the path? And again, no judgment. I want you to hear the humor in that word, flailing. How have you been flailing on the path? What are the ways in which your ego just takes control of you and your addictions take control? What are the ways you put your foot in your mouth or let your emotions guide you? How have you flailed on the path? And again, you see that with a smile. Being human is hard and it's messy. And it's also childlike. Like we have these childlike bodies and nervous systems and minds. We have childlike emotions. Sometimes we throw tantrums. And I invite you to smile, smile, smile at the ways you flailed. If you're a habitual chronic doubter, if you get up in the morning and you make some conscious intention and then 5 minutes later you break it, again, I want you to smile at yourself. Smile. I don't see anybody smiling. I'm certainly smiling here. I'm smiling at the ways that I've messed up the path. Life is hard. It's messy. It's okay to smile, admit that we've flailed, that we've screwed it up, that we've dropped the ball. How are the ways you flailed? And so I say thank you. How about the ways you have dismissed the truth? So sometimes you hear the truth. Maybe you're listening on YouTube. You hear some great spiritual teacher, Adyashanti, Gangaji, somebody, Ramana Maharshi, I don't know, somebody. Speak Tamil. You hear the great spiritual teaching. You're like, yes, I hear the truth. And then a minute later, you dismiss it. You let your ego lead you again. How are the ways you dismiss the truth? Most of us, we know the truth. And then we choose to do the opposite. Again, I'm going to invite you to smile a little bit. If you see the ways you've seen the truth, you know the truth, and then you choose to pick up a smoke, a drink, a chocolate, Instagram, whatever the addictive cycle is. And again, can you smile? Can you smile? How are the ways you've dismissed the truth? And you saw the step right in front of you, and you walked in the wrong direction. And so I will say, thank you. Thank you. Now, some of you are sitting back. And again, whether it's been complacency or it's been drifting, some of us, we play this game called the waiting game. We wait for God to do it for us. And so I ask you, what are the ways in which you are waiting for God, for the guru, for grace, for life to do the step for you? And often in life, God is waiting for us because we are God in human form here on planet Earth. So what are the ways you are waiting? And that can create a whole cycle of frustration, or blaming, or hating life. What are the ways in which you sit back and are waiting? So again, breathing in and breathing out. Sitting deeply with these questions. The ways we've been complacent, the ways we've been drifting, the ways we've been dismissive, the ways we've been floating, the ways we have been waiting. What are the ways in which you have been waiting for God to show you the truth, to make the steps for you? And sometimes God says, I'm going to wait for them to come forward, for them to choose the truth. When will we have world peace? When people choose to put down their weapons, choose to put down the fight, choose to put down their political dogma. What are the ways in which you are waiting? Waiting. And so I say thank you. Thank you for looking deeply into these questions. The next one I ask you, How are the ways in which you blame the other? You blame life. You blame yourself. And so we all know by now that blaming is not the highest truth. So can we surrender blame and choose to forgive, choose to let go? And so again, I ask you, how are the ways in which you've been blaming? Most humans are proficient at blaming. How are the ways in which you've been blaming your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your past, big corporations, whatever it is? Blaming the opposite political party. What are the ways in which you've been blaming? And so I say thank you. What are the ways in which you have been avoiding the truth? How do you avoid the truth? Ignore the truth. In what ways have you walked away from the truth? And so I say thank you. Thank you for looking deeply at the ways you've avoided the truth, the ways in which you've blamed others, ways in which you've been complacent, the ways in which you've drifted, the ways in which you've been sitting back and waiting, the ways in which you've been dismissive. I say thank you for taking the time to honestly investigate the truth and investigate the falsehood which is veiling the truth. And so, if you like, you can gently open your eyes, but I invite you to continue to stay with a direct experience of love and radiance in your heart. I invite you to stay in the direct experience of humor. You look at your humanity and can smile at the ways in which your addiction have ruled you, your unconscious have ruled you. And in this moment, with open eyes and being connected into the strength and the power of our hara, I invite you to join me again in this moment, setting this intention, saying, I stand in the truth. I choose the truth. I walk in the direction of the truth. And I happily, humbly surrender that which is false, that which is false, that which is false. And so we just take a moment and I invite you to let the truth reveal itself to you of what is your next step. What is your next step? And for some of us, that's something we need to surrender. We need to let go of. Some of the foolishness that we saw arise in our inquiry practice here tonight, this day. For some of us, maybe we need to practice more. Recommit ourselves to practice. Recommit ourselves to opening right here, right now. to this quiet love that we are, to give up the attachment to power that all of us have in our egoic nature. Our ego is addicted to its own power, its own authority. And for some of us, that authority shows up in fighting or having to be right, and others it shows up in addicted and neurotic, avoidant complexes of a psychological nature. For some of us, we're addicted to doubting or fearing. But in this moment, we are choosing the truth. And can we choose it with a smile, a smile, saying yes to the truth, yes to our next step. And you all know what your next step is. You don't need me to tell you what your next step is. Your heart will tell you. And so we're choosing in this moment to let go out of the mind and to live from the heart, to live from the heart. This place of love, this place of power, this place of depth. Choosing to step into something much, much greater. Okay. So, I think as far as right now, I'm going to start this evening with a silly story. A silly story. So this weekend, I ran away out into the mountains, and it started off as a beautiful, beautiful, sunny Friday afternoon. I drove up high into the mountains, and it's just me and God, me and the divine. And it felt so lovely just to be out in nature, to allow my mind to expand to the hugeness of the sky and the mountains. It felt so lovely. It's a gift we all need to give ourselves, more time in silence, in emptiness. And so, the mountains where I live, they are incredibly beautiful, wondrous. But the mountains are also wild. And I found myself in a wild time. So I got way out in the mountains, and out here in the West, for those of you who don't know, it's like we have all this public land. Is what it's called. We just call it national forest, but people back east somehow, for some reason, call it public land. So I was out in the national forest, and in the national forest, we have these ranchers that come, and they might drop off 800 cattle. And because we don't have such good grasslands here in Colorado, it's a pretty dry state. So they bring them up in the mountains where it rains. And so I was up there, and there's all these cattle out where I was. And, they were just kind of tromping around in the aspens. And where I was, I just saw like these two cows up on a mountainside, and we had a good time meditating together. But at some point, it got dark and I got tired. And so I turned in. And as soon as I got snuggled in, I was camping out in my van. A massive rainstorm came. So God was playing. It was bowling up in the sky, and there was thunder and lightning and rainstorms. And, my van was shaking from side to side. It's like, my God, what's happening here? And, I tell you this, I love this van I have. I've got this tall Sprinter van you can stand up in. It's like a mini RV, but it's a two-wheel drive van, and two-wheel drive isn't always the best thing to have in the mountains, and so I started to have a thought. that I might get stuck. I might get stuck at my campsite because it rained a god awful amount, and I was on a little slope. Uh, my campsite was on a little slope. I wasn't on a paved road or anything like that. I was miles from a paved road. I will go up these old logging roads is where I go. And anyways, so the next morning I got up and sure enough, I had myself a mess on my hands. I had a 2-wheel drive van and it was stuck in the mud. And I'm going to make it a little bit more colorful for you. Now, even though I only had 2 cows that were hanging out with me, um, I was kind of on the side of this mountain here, and these cows had eaten this luscious grass all over the mountain, and they had, well, I'll just say this: there was a lot of cow manure everywhere, which is an interesting thing because, I haven't been in a situation like this before, where there's lots of mud and lots of manure. Normally when I'm up in the mountains, the cows aren't with me, but in this moment, a couple cows were with me, but a lot of manure was with me. And so anyways, it was a messy situation, to say the least. And so, I got up and I meditated. I said my prayers. I went on a little hike and I did my thing and cooked some breakfast. And it was such a beautiful spot where I was at. There's these big alpine peaks in the distance. Cinnamon mountain that me and my daughters have climbed before. A beautiful, gorgeous peak. And here I was with this van. And at some point I said, oh, maybe I should get this thing going and see if I can get out of here and just get out to the logging road at least. Now, I got my van and immediately the tires started to spin. And, I had a choice. I could walk back to a cell reception, because that was the other things. I had no cell reception out where I was. I could walk, I don't know what that would be, 4 miles, 6 miles, something. Hike out to cell reception and call a friend with a big Dodge truck, or call a tow truck, or what else could I do? I could stay for a week and let the van, let the ground dry out, and see if it stops raining. And, at some point I said, gosh, I don't like any of these options. Let me dig around my van. And I had some snow chains in the van. It's like, I want to try some chains in the mud. Now, again, I want you just to keep in mind, I'm in mud and there's manure everywhere. And I got the van to go a little bit. And at some point, the tires were all covered in manure. But I had, just because I'm a prepper and a survival freak, I had, a pair of like what you would wear on a fishing boat in Alaska. So I had like a fishing boat jacket, and some big bibs, like rubber bibs, and my gloves. And I said, all right, I'm going to put these chains on. Any ever put chains on a van, a truck, it's no easy task. But anyways, so I chained up, and about 3.5 hours later, like my chains would go on, but for some reason with the mud, it would make it so I could get like maybe a couple feet and then the chains would fly off. And so here I am covered in mud and shit, and trying to put these chains on. And at some point, after about 3 hours, it occurred to me that I could pray, that I could ask for divine support. Now, sometimes I'm a little bit stubborn. Sometimes I'm a little bit of a cowboy. Sometimes I try to do things all by myself. And I think we all know this path, that sometimes we get stubborn, we get hard-headed. Sometimes we get tunnel vision on the path and we don't see clearly. We don't see clearly. Sometimes we fight with reality. Now I was fighting and I was making some headway slowly but surely. But at some point, and I had at least, like a football field to go. And at some point, I sat down, covered in mud and again, manure. And it was, I sat down and I laughed. And God, I even, I went in my van to get something. And in the van, the doorway is, it's not, anyways, when I was going in the van, I cracked the back of my head like really hard, like almost like knocked myself out. And I was like, boy, this is turning into a bad day here. And so at some point I sat down, in that sloppy mud and manure. And I looked up at God and I said, Lord, will you help me? Will you help me? I said, I would like to get home today. I'd like to see my daughter, because my daughter, they'd been gone. They were out in Oregon for a week. And uh, anyways, I hadn't seen her in a while. And it might have been I think it was 2 weeks since I seen her. And I said, God, I'd like to get home and see my daughter. I'd like just to get home. I'd like just to get out of this mess. I would like some help here, God. Will you please help a brother out? Please, Lord, help me. And so I put those chains on one last time. And it's a real pain in the butt because, I have to put my chains on and then I have to take off my muddy and manure covered suit to get into my van to drive it, So it's a lot of work just putting chains on and then getting in and out of this outfit. And so finally I got back in the van, and I turned the key and away I went. And away I went up to the logging road. The chain stayed on and the Lord helped me. The Lord helped me. And I said, gosh, thank you, God, so much for being here with me. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for helping me on this path. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was in just absolute awe. Because I'll tell you this, that many times I'll just be hanging out. Like I was hanging out that morning before I started the van in this vast, open, non-dual state of freedom. And freedom is a wonderful thing in an absolute sense. But freedom doesn't always solve every problem in your life. It tends to solve most of our psychological problems, our psychological perspectives, our psychological suffering. Now, I had no doubt that I was going to get out of there. But at some point, the question was just going to be how? How are you going to get out of there? And so what I'm inviting here is just this recognition that non-dual states are wondrous, but sometimes they do not solve the problems of our daily life. Sometimes we need to make some steps, and sometimes we need to call upon the divine to come into us, to help us, to aid us here. This is an insane world we live in. It is so difficult. It is so confusing. It is so messy. And from a place of humility, It's a sweet thing sometimes just to sit down and say, God, will you come here now and help me? I admit, this human, sometimes a human who's even awake, I cannot see what the solution is. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know how to fix this. Will you, God, creator, the doer, the great doer beyond all doers, will you come here and show me the way? Will you flood me with a gift of grace? Will you be the grand doer and help get me out of this pickle? Help get me out of this pickle. Because life is like that sometimes. Life is just a pickle. And I think often in life, we're given these things. It's just the thing that we can't solve in this moment. And so I ask you, what is that thing in your life? The thing that you cannot solve, the thing that you cannot fix, the thing that you cannot sort. And can you ask for guidance? Can you come into a place of humility and admit, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed. Or sometimes it's, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how to proceed. But Lord, I need the strength to say no. Now, I've worked with people with addiction in so many different lands, and whether it's cigarettes or drink or, a substance of some sort. My favorite person I worked with was I worked with this young girl. I've told this many times before, but this young lady, and she had been systematically, and I'm going to use this word, ritualistically abused throughout her life by her mother. Horrific abuse, like god awful abuse. Like I don't even want to say out loud what the kind of abuse was, but it was horrific. And she had developed these addictions, and these addictions were ways of avoiding and disassociating from the painful memories she had. Now, it's very interesting to me because even though she had such a terribly abusive mother, she did have occasionally, maybe once a week or once a month, she'd have this sweet moment with her mother where her mother would sit down and give her a Pepsi Cola. And so she got it in her mind, in her body, in her DNA, in her biology, that Pepsi Cola was synonymous with love. Her body made this association. Now, she came and she saw me. This is back when I had an office, and it's funny to think of that those days back when we used to have offices. But anyways, she used to come in and she'd bring the big guzzler with her, and I helped her. I helped her wean herself off cigarettes and addictions to food. But this one great addiction she had was to Pepsi Cola. She said it was like 100 times harder than getting off cigarettes. So if you imagine, I think cigarettes, most people say is the hardest. But anyways, I think benzos are probably the hardest thing to get off. But anyways, she struggled and struggled and struggled. And I would pray for her. We'd call upon the Divine Mother to support her in giving her the strength, because her teeth were all rotting. It was like that bad, and she struggled with weight and obesity from being so addicted to Pepsi Cola. And sometimes life is like this, that we know what our step is. We know what the next thing that we have to do is. But for some of us, we feel this disconnection from strength in the body. And so sometimes when we pray, we ask God just to be relieved, or we ask God to come in and like help me get out of the shit show, literally, that I was involved in the other day. And my God, it is, I cannot communicate what a beautiful place it was that I was stuck in. Like, it was so beautiful, just so gorgeous. And on the earth, these cows, sometimes cows can really mess something up. Anyways, and a little bit of rain and not four-wheel drive. Um, anyways, I digress. Sometimes it can be helpful for us to pray for strength, or for lacking love, to pray for the divine to come into us and to show us, to teach us how to love, to teach us how to love. Now, most people think that love is some sweet, flowery quality, some lofty quality. And it is. It is, if we're just experiencing it directly. But most of us need the kind of love which is a willingness to sit with the difficulty of our life. The willingness to be Christ-like, and to sit with an open heart and to feel the pain, and to actually grieve the pain, to let go of the pain. But there's this thing that happens with each of our veils, whatever that veil is, that's veiling our consciousness, is there's this dance that has to happen first psychologically. We have to be willing to own our addiction, or our closedness, our stressed out psyche, our agitation, our irritability, our frustration, our complacency, our anger, our fear. We have to be willing to own it first before that thing can release. We have to be willing to be honest and say, I have this, I have this, I am a compulsive liar. I am a compulsive liar. That's what I am. And of course, not really what you are, but it's an aspect of your ego psychology. So it's the ego psychology admitting this. I am a liar, and I lie because I'm scared. Because I'm scared. Because I'm scared. I'm scared. Now, my wife, she was hanging out with these people the other day. And my God, I'm going to talk about politics, so please, I don't want anyone to get their feathers all ruffled. But these people were so lost in their politics. They were just they were CNN liberals, is what I'll call them. And I don't mean any offense to any of y'all who watch CNN. That just means you've been watching it too much. And so they were watching too much CNN, and they're watching too much of this and that on the internet all day long. And they didn't even believe, they could not admit that Mr. Trump had been shot. They said he faked it. I was like, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord. And I reflected, I know these individuals, I reflected for a moment, and they're both deeply anxious individuals. And for some of us, like we're in political season right now, for some of us, we follow politics all day long, and we follow the drama and the chaos, and we have someone to blame on the other side, and we just hate them. We hate them. And we hate them so much as a way to avoid our own pain, our own anxiety. We hate them. We say those damn conservatives, those damn liberals, those damn whoever, and we hate them. We humans do so many funny dances. We are such inefficient creatures on the path. Instead of sitting down and admitting, oh my God, I am suffering so much. and I need help. I need to let go. I need to breathe. I need to meditate. I need to meditate some more. I need to do some yoga. I need to sit down and have someone guide me and helping me let go of my anxiety and reconnect to my strength. But instead of doing the hard work of letting go, the hard work of opening up, we choose instead to watch CNN and to figure out who to hate. And they hate all the people that CNN hates. They hate Trump. They hate Joe Rogan. They hate Dana White. They hate all these people. They say, I want to hate him. I hate JD Vance. He's bad. He's bad. It's just this game of distraction. And it happens on both sides. So please don't think I'm picking a side tonight. I'm just using this as an example because it's the one that came into my life. But we play this game. Some of us, we hate our wife. We hate our husband. We hate our partner. We pick on them all day long as a way to avoid our own pain. But the thing that we've forgotten, or maybe it's something that we have not known in this lifetime, that pain is a doorway to compassion. And compassion, of course, is a doorway to vast, radiant love, vast, radiant peace, vast, radiant openness. But how many of us are willing to surrender our distorted perspective, a perspective that veils our absolute divinity? How many of us are willing to surrender whatever it is that our veil is? But again, in order to surrender something, we have to own it first. We have to say, I am a bleeding heart liberal. I am a right-wing Republican. I am a this and I'm a that, and I've taken this false identity. I've taken it on. Sometimes our identity, like with spiritual people, sometimes our identity is I am sensitive and I can't handle all the pressure of life. And so I need to smoke, I need to drink, I need to microdose every day. I need to constantly avoid. I need to be on YouTube listening to spiritual teachers all day as a way to avoid the insanity of my own mind, as a way to avoid my own pain. I feel this pressure, and so I soothe this pressure by distraction. I bet every single one of us in this room knows this experience of being all pressurized inside. But I ask you, if you feel pressurized from your ego, if you feel frustrated within your egoic nature, feel full of angst and fire or overwhelming sadness, grief, or repressed grief is sometimes what it is that makes us feel pressure. I'm going to ask you to look deeply from a place of love. Asking your true self, what is it that this body mind needs support with? How can I help this thing let go? How can I help it to let go? And so it takes a willingness to sit and to be with frustration, to be with fire, to be with heat, to be with doubt. Doubt's a fun one. Or desire, doubt and desire. They're always like, keep chasing around the corner. And so sometimes if we have doubt or desire, whatever it is, can we just sit and say no? No to that old story of the mind. No to that. And yes to opening right here, right now. And often when we open and there's pain here, we'll feel pain first. And so we might have to feel the heat, the fire, frustration, or sadness, or with doubt, it's insecurity. With desire, again, it's insecurity. I'll complete myself. When I possess the fill in the blank. Can we sit with that insecurity and let it burn? Let it open. Let it empty. And in this great, vast emptiness, discover the truth of that which is changeless. The truth of what you are. The truth beyond this silly, wild dance of egoic identification. And so, let's see if there's anything else. Someone emailed a question. See if I can pull this one up. Hi, Craig. What is the healthy planning mind versus the planning mind that puts me in the prison of my head? I've experienced miraculous and effortless manifestations in the heart view. Please forgive me for asking what is obvious. In either view, whether it's in bondage of mind, thought, or in the graces of expansion, I can't see the flip side. I'm asking myself, why do I choose to keep going back to so much pain and suffering? And then he writes, I am making progress though. Yeah. Well, we're all making progress here on planet Earth. We're all making progress. But let's look at this question. I think the difference, people have this question. I think I'll ask the question, a different way here. See if I can get just to the gist of it. People say, Craig, you tell me to come into my heart, but what do I need to do? What do I do when I need to make a decision? When I need to make a decision. What do I need? What do I do when I need to use my mind to plan out my day or do something logical or whatever it is? Well, there's nothing wrong with having a mind. But I encourage you to use your mind the same way I might use my nail gun. So my nail gun will sit there, unpressurized, collecting dust until I need it. And when I need it, I pick that tool up, I fire up the compressor, and I hook that hose into the gun, with a little coupler there. And that thing comes into power. And I use it in a very direct way. Very direct way. I look at what I'm going to nail and I nail that thing. Boom, boom, boom. I nail that thing. I use it like a tool because that's what it is. It's a tool. So your planning mind, I encourage you to use it as a tool. But what you're describing here is the tool using you. The tool using you. And the primary reason why this happens is because us human beings, one, we're mental creatures. For some reason, our culture has entranced us. And this idea of disconnecting from your heart and giving your mind full power over the body. And this mind will make us sick 100 different ways if we're not careful. Will destroy our life if we're not careful. We'll just slowly gobble it up in this unconscious dance. And how in the last 4 years, most of us, myself included, have gotten involved in various mind viruses. I think we can all smile, at the ways we all freaked out with COVID, that we all lost ourselves and got involved in that gigantic mind virus of the coronavirus. We all got lost in one way or another. And to this day, I still see people driving down the road in their car with the windows up, by themselves with a mask on. I say, that human being is the mind virus. They have the mind virus. And so a virus is this thing that just runs out of control. It just repeats itself. It's this habitual thing that our mind does. And our mind, it loves, it's hardwired to be on autopilot, just to spin and spin and spin and spin. And at some point, we have to unplug that mind. We have to say no to that mind. But just like, like if any of you have been to AA before, I've been to AA. And when you go to AA, you gotta do this deal. It's like, you gotta unplug from drink. It's like, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to say no to that thing. But that's not the only teaching in AA. You got to unplug from one thing and to plug into something different. And so this day we started satsang with this power of choice, this willingness to choose something greater than the mind. What's greater than the mind? Well, how about the heart? We must choose to come into the heart and rest in the heart. For most everyone on planet Earth, and I mean like just about everyone, unless you're born an avatar, you're going to need some level of training in this. Training. The willingness to sit in the heart and just stay there and not touch anything else. I come into the heart, I rest in the heart, and I don't touch anything else. But the majority of us here on planet Earth have a neurotic mind, neurotic and habitual mind that spins out of control. And if your mind has all the power, you'll be asking this question: what do I do with this planning mind that's just compulsively planning in an anxious way, in a habitual way? You must create a new habit. You must find a new home, whether that's the heart or the belly. The hara tends to be very quiet, very powerful. Most people, when they come into their hara, they either feel tension or they feel nothingness. That freaks them out a little bit, so they go back up to their mind. A lot of people, when they come into their heart, they just feel the pain of all their ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, partners, whatever, that have hurt them. And so they go back into their mind and hang out in the story. You must know this thing, that if you're going to come into the heart, if you're going to come into the hara, it's going to take some work. This work of anchoring down and in. And again, initially, when we begin to meditate, why most people give up on meditation? Because meditation is hard. It's difficult. It's confusing. You might not immediately find inner peace, bliss, or freedom. I can remember once upon a time, I counted up my meditation hours. This is when I was young. And I remember I had a smile on my face. I said, I made it to 10,000 hours. And let me tell you, 10,000 hours was not enough for this one. I needed more than 10,000 hours to be established in the heart. Because all day long, we're in our heads thinking, chasing here, planning this, planning that. We have to create a new habit. A new habit. Right now, our world leaders are planning, unconsciously planning, World War III. And why is that? Because they're not in their heart. Joe Biden, he's not in his heart. Kamala Harris, she's not in her heart. The Israelis, they're not in their heart. The Iranians, not in their heart. Mr. Putin, he's not in his heart. Mr. Zelensky, he's not in his heart. They're either all in corruption, like here in the United States, the Democratic Party has been corrupted. The Republican Party has been corrupted by the military-industrial complex. It's hilarious to see that the Democratic Party is now the party of war. Party of war. Joe Biden just said he's going to support Ukraine for the next 10 years. That's a habit of war. Who is ready to start the habit of peace, the habit of love, the habit of forgiveness? Who is willing to put down the fight? To put down the fight, to come to the table of peace. In this case, with this question, we're talking about coming into the heart, staying in the heart. And what you'll find in your heart has a different type of intelligence. The heart isn't planning on 10 years of weapons being sent to a war zone. That's not what the heart is saying. The heart is saying, hey, how about we stop killing each other? We stop killing each other. How about we put down the weapons, but we put down the fight? We put down the war. How about we put down our damn politics? How about we put it down? How about we put it down? So whatever it is that you trip over, in this question with Don about the planning mind, we need to put that down. And we need to pick up the intelligence of the heart. And what you will find is that the heart is highly intelligent if you get to know it. If you get to know it. Now, sometimes I will say this, that when I rest in my heart, which is my normal place of being, and I need to think about something, again, I might pick up my mind, say, okay, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? And I quickly write my list, I write it on my sticky note. I'll write it on my phone. The phone has that note taker app, which I love so much. And I make that list. And as soon as I make the list, I forget about it. I let it go. I let it go. I don't have to think anymore. I don't compulsively, keep ruminating over every detail. I just look at the top of the list and say, what's my next step? Okay. This is what I'm doing. This is the thing. But when I do that thing, I'm doing it while resting in the heart. All day long, we rest in the heart. We rest in the heart. We rest in the truth. And as you do this, you establish a new habit, the habit of freedom. The habit of freedom. And you teach your mind, and I mean that literally, you teach your mind that it can have a hiatus, can go into retirement, and it can just go into spaciousness, that it doesn't need to think all day long. You teach your mind that there is a presence here, which is intelligent. And this intelligence, you allow it to lead your life forward. This world that we've incarnated into is an evolutionary world. Now, while it is possible to have great shifts in consciousness, we all have this mammal body, which is a creature of habit, which is so utterly unconscious. And this body, this mind, this psychological nature, this body which is full of addiction, it needs to be taught. The same way I have a puppy at my house, he needs to be taught to go potty outside. We need to teach him. We need to teach him that outside is where he goes potty. So we have to teach our body that there's a new way to be, a new way to live. And this new way is actually the old way. It's the original way. It's the way that we were born into. This isn't something that we don't need to go out and create. It's something that we need to uncover because it's already here within us. And so I'm going to leave us. Oh, Kyle has a question. Let's see what Kyle has to say. But I'm going to invite us to really look at this question of what is the thing that you've tripped over? Can you let this go? And can you invite something greater, something true to come forward and lead you? Okay, let's hear from Kyle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Kyle, good to see you.
Good to see you too. For me, I've I've done a lot of from your teachings, I've done a lot of work below the neck. And I noticed though that I don't end up spending so much time in my head while I'm meditating.
Good.
But I've noticed that my skull and my eyeballs, they're not like aligned. And my eyes might go in different directions, and then my eyes start blinking. I'm like, what's going on? But like my
What is
meditation,
going on? Do you have reggae myelitis? What do you have going on? You're telling me that your eyes are spinning in different direction? What are you telling me here?
yeah, like for example, so my jaw will go in different directions. It
Is
won't be
this
like
during meditation or are you just hanging out and this is happening?
I'm talking more about meditation.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so with meditation, we're talking about a Kundalini Kriya here. So energy sometimes moves through the throat chakra, this area here, that's going to affect the jaw. And sometimes the throat chakra and the third eye, they both kind of blend into each other. And sometimes as we're really opening and we've let go in a surrendered way, sometimes God will come into us at advanced stages of the awakening process and begin to rewire aspects of our neurobiology. And sometimes this can create all kinds of strange, bizarre, movements in the eyes and the jaw, kind of spinning in the neck and this and that. So is that sounding like what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and it's getting more and more subtle. But yeah, it's like in the eyeballs and the jaw and
Yeah.
like a clicking in the throat.
Yeah. 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 And so God's just opening some things up and moving some things around and doing some rewiring work. And, all of this can be quite bizarre and confusing. And a lot of people think about it a little too much and rush off to the neurologist and this and that and ask the doctor what's wrong with them. And, you can always go get checked out if you want to. But normally, if something is just happening in meditation, then it's, probably part of this brain uh, rewiring process. And again, it can feel funky and bizarre, but if you trust, you'll notice that new states of consciousness begin to open. But if you notice, like during our meditations, often I tell people to relax behind their eyes because most everyone has a tremendous amount of tension right behind their octal nerves, in their octal nerves. And it's kind of coming out of like the prefrontal cortex because, again, we're such mental centered beings. And so in meditation, the invitation is kind of bring our conscious awareness back toward the back of the skull. And as you do so, there'll be a letting go in this whole front area, and you start to feel more emptiness and peace. And sometimes during that letting go process, the eyes and the jaw, the throat chakra again, can start to open and things can move around, or it can feel like some, for me, for like 5 years, it felt like God's hands were in my skull and just like unplugging things and plugging different things in and moving things around. And I had a huge array of very bizarre and incredibly profound spiritual experiences and states of consciousness. But, again, I would just notice it. And like this last person asked this question, Don asked this question about the planning mind. And one of the things that you'll find is that through this rewiring process, there'll be aspects of your thinking mind, especially the habitual thinking mind, that will fall away. That will fall away. And some of it is really concerning for some people. Like me, I have a lot of trouble doing math anymore. I have to literally get out a calculator to do some math. Um, and I've had to relearn some math too. And luckily, I've got a fifth grader here who I do flashcards with. So I'm relearning sometimes. But sometimes our mind just gets so spacious that big chunks of ego psychology, or like the thing within us that neurotically plans, like that might just fall away. Like I drive my wife crazy because I don't plan anything. Planning is so hard for me. And I just kind of show up and do. And she likes to plan, she likes to organize. And I've really lost, big chunks of that capacity. But again, when I just look at my life, I sit and I open and I let God direct me, and things seem to work themselves out, pretty good, pretty good. Occasionally I get myself in a pickle like I did the other day. But even when that happens, I think it's just a divine thing. But do you have any concern about this movement in your eyes?
No, no concern. No, it's just
Yeah.
like it just looks really silly and it feels really silly.
Yeah, yeah. And it feels silly. And um like that's a good way to relate to it, is just to be like, okay, like, and again, like I said, I just call it God operating on me. But again, there would be things that felt very, very strange. And I can say that sometimes it was immensely painful, and other times it was like soothing and blissful, and other times just downright weird and bizarre. Like at one point, I can remember I just woke up and had this feeling of, instead of like in most pictures that like you see a saint, they have like a halo like this around them, but I felt like a halo like this. And I think that's actually the proper way of having the halo like this. But it felt like there was a band of light, around my head. And it was funny because the word that came to my mind was, it was like I had a donut around my head that was made of light. I didn't call it a halo because I'm not fooling myself in that way. But for me, it just felt like there was this spacious donut of light around my head. And that went on for many months until I just came accustomed to it. Now I don't even think about it anymore. But it's funny, sometimes when these things first open up and you're like, what's happening here? And I've seen people get real worrisome and sick. And especially if anyone's like a little bit older, they start to think they're going into dementia and this and that, or early onset dementia or early onset Alzheimer's. People get real concerned about these things. And sometimes we're just waking up and we're stepping into a different type of mind. And so I'm going to invite you just to roll with it, and just, sometimes I'll have a little conversation, say, God, like, what are you doing up there? Like, what are you doing in my head? Or if there's anything I need to know, let me know. And humans, we're so interested in like knowledge and understanding. But for me, it's always been like, is there a way I can cooperate with this process? Is there a way I can cooperate? And in the beginning, a lot of times when things were taken away from me, like old ego habits, that they weren't the worst things that I did. Like having a planning mind isn't a bad thing. But when it fell away, or when I lost big chunks of my memory, that was concerning to some degree. But the big thing is, if you trust it, it'll go quicker, and the integration process will be more smooth than if you fight against it. Some people go into great states of fear. And of course, that's not so helpful. Not so helpful. So, well, beautiful, Kyle. Thanks for sharing your experience. Anything else you want to share about it, or any other questions, or anything you want to correct?
Yeah, like, well, just like an additional thing. if I go fully in my heart and I open my eyes, my vision is blurry.
If you go fully into your heart and you open your eyes, and so like you're saying in a state of meditation.
Or even like right now, like if I'm just in my heart and I look out at reality, like it's more of a blurry vision.
Okay.
So then, like if I feel like I'm at work or something, I need to be fully in my eyes, and then it's clear, but I feel like I'm less in my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we're going blurry, sometimes um, that'll be synonymous with us going into like let's say a subtle state of samadhi,
Yeah.
or it could be that we're beginning to disassociate in an egoic way. So does it feel more like a lofty spiritual state, or does it feel like you're disassociating?
More like a spiritual state.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
if I go in samadhi at work, I'll just like if I need to do something really quickly, I'll just quickly go into my head and do it, and then kind of like go back into the state of samadhi a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing again to play with. Now, as a school teacher, you might get yourself in a little bit of trouble, doing
Yeah.
that. But most of the time, like what I found is like a lot of people don't care or they don't notice. They're too lost in their own world to pay any attention to what we're doing. Um, life will come and slap you in the face if you go into samadhi too much, or different kind of samadhi states. And so, a different thing that we can play with, and I'm going to invite all of us to play with this right now, is, make sure you have your eyes open, everyone, right now, and you can just like look out at the world through your regular, like normal human egoic eyes, just like your regular eyes. But then if you just imagine coming down into your heart and imagining two eyes in the center of your chest, and you begin to look out at life, these two eyes in the center of your chest. And I want you to see if when you do this, things don't become more like cloudy and samadhi like, but I'm going to invite you to feel your feet on the earth and kind of feel this quiet sense of strength, a sense of here-ness, like awakeness. And if you look out at the world while you're here, you're awake, and you're in your heart, if you notice, colors might start to feel, be experienced as more alive. Objects that you're looking at may be perceived with a greater sense of radiance and aliveness. If you take a big, deep step into your heart, you may begin to recognize that the things that you are looking at are your own self. There's not a sense of division here. That you actually are the thing, and the thing is you. And so, Kyle, can you see this? Can you feel this? Or are you still having that thing where things are getting real fuzzy with you again?
No, it's not a fuzzy. It's like entering into a different realm. It's like a vision of oneness and not like, yeah, it's not a blurriness though. I think that my eyes still are adjusting to this new vision, but
Yeah. So
but
things will. So,
almost more
so
clear.
yeah. So the word that I use, it's interesting that so like sometimes I'll just go like straight into samadhi, and that's just like kind of emptying out into like a place where I don't exist. But in this place, when I look at things, and again, like this is just where I naturally look from, is things will be sharp and clear, but also have like a radiance to them. And that might be what you're calling fuzzy, but they'll have like a radiance that things will seem as if they are alive, because they are. They are. And even, like the scientists will tell us this, that, everything is just radiating light, like all objects. I'm trying to find my Can't find my Shiva Lingam here, but like all objects, here it is. Like even this, like this Shiva Lingam. I look at it, it's rich with its color, but it's radiating. And even though it's a solid thing, there's a radiance to it. And just whatever I look at, it can be something boring like a window blind. There's a radiance to it. And this radiance is in me, it's in you, it's in, I see it in all of you. And it could be a fun game to play is if we just allow our vision just to drop out of the head, like this prefrontal cortex with all its thinking and activity and all that kind of stuff is coming down into the heart and looking out at the world. And then, like you said, this you start to see from this new dimension of love, where you see things as the beauty and the radiance that they are. And it can be even fun to see something, like I'm sure everyone here has got like a little bit of a political slant with them. If you can look at our favorite Mr. Trump or our favorite Mr. Biden or whoever the hell your person is, RFK, like I love RFK. People give me hell for that, but just like to see this individual, and maybe you've judged them harshly before, you see the richness of them, the radiance of them, the divinity of it. It can be a beautiful thing. And it can be very shocking to one's ego psychology if you start to see things that you once despised. You see that thing with love. And again, if our world is going to change, if we are going to end, like World War III is beginning, but if we are going to end it, if we're going to end it, this is going to be the way. You're choosing to see the enemy, see the difficulty, to see the challenge, whatever it is, the challenge is in our life, with these new eyes, begin to perceive in a unified way. Whereas our ego psychology, especially that place right behind the eyeballs, sees life as a problem that needs to be solved or fixed or defended or attacked or guarded or whatever. And can we see this world? Can we see it? Can we see it? Through the eyes of the heart. And as we do so, we begin to wake up and we become the eyes of God. The eyes of God here on planet Earth, looking around. And then from the eyes of God, then we act. We act with the hands of God, with the body of God. You see, everything changes. And Kyle, I will assure you that if you open your heart in this grounded way with your feet on the earth and you walk into the classroom, you won't have to go in and out. You won't have to be like, I'm spiritual Kyle. Oh, wait, now I'm worldly Kyle. Now I'm spiritual Kyle. Now you won't have to do this dance back and forth and back and forth, because we all know this dance. We all know this game.
Yeah.
We go in, we go out. We go in, we go out. We go in, we go out. We can just come in and we make this the new habit. It's a habit of being. And you allow this love to see through you, to act through you. And for those of you who tonight I upset with bringing up politics, I bring up politics to ruffle your feathers. Please know that. But maybe one day your feathers won't be ruffled. You won't care if I say Trump is the best or Biden is the best. I think Biden, he's done, but Kamala is the best. It's like RFK is the best. It's like you won't get your feathers ruffled. You'll be able to see, okay, they're just people. They're just people. We're trying to be leaders. we're probably going to be less than perfect. Less than perfect. Less than perfect. But again, like Gandhi taught us, the change starts with us. With us. Seeing the world. Seeing the world. Like, I don't think the Iranians are the enemy. The Russians are the enemy. North Korea, they're not the enemy. This whole thing of making enemies is just going to lead to more war and violence. And sometimes we just make enemy out of our neighbor. Out of our neighbor. One of my best friends right now. He's got a beautiful house and beautiful garden, beautiful home. And, he made his neighbor his enemy. So he has to hurry up and sell his house. It's like we can get so lost. But when we look out at life through the lens of the heart, we see love and radiance everywhere. And we also see, oh, there's a step that we could make. A step that we could make. And as we make a step, the world makes a step. And so anyways, I'm going to leave us all with that. So much love and respect to each of you. A couple of you joined late. Please sign up for the retreat sooner rather than later. August 23rd through the 25th. Those are all my big announcements. Deep love to each of you. Good night, everyone. Be well.